Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel. I'm honored to be here once again with our Planet X physicist. And ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last several days, the doctor has come under, well, let's just say deep state attack by the YouTube debunkers, the uneducated YouTube debunkers. And this morning, it is the 4th of July, Independence Day here in the United States, marked by fireworks. So we're going to start this morning off with just that. We're going to start this off with some fireworks because it is, well, let's just say this is just the way that it has to be. Since the doctor has arrived here in the United States, she has come under attack viciously by several people. And we'll go ahead and name those individuals because they themselves are completely uneducated fools, and they do not know what they are speaking about. And they are trying to, well, basically spread disinformation and cast a doubt in all of your minds. And if you don't get mad and upset at what they're trying to do, then I would suggest that you join their crew, because that's basically what it is. We're referring to these individuals over there at this YouTube channel, WTF Sky Live. Jake and Mari were talking about Daza, the cameraman, the New Zealand debunker. And now we've added another individual in their camp, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Lee Wilbarger. And this gentleman is jumping into the arena with his whole theories of the grand solar minimum causing an ice age. But we're not seeing any evidence of that. I mean, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, all of the scientific evidence proves that the Earth has been heating up, and it is continuing to heat up. But this isn't about the grand solar minimum. This is about these individuals perpetrating a fraud against humanity. All of these individuals. And the fact of the matter is, none of these people, none of them are educated enough to stand in the same arena as the doctor. None of them have the educational background or training to even debate her. And all they want to do is slander her name, insult her, and scare her. And the threats are already pouring in on a daily basis. They make up all kinds of things about me on a daily basis. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. And we did know that these individuals would try to attack the doctor in any possible way they can. And we've been producing credible information on our research and our investigations into proving what is happening in our solar system. And in today's live stream, we're going to go over a bunch of this information. We're going to go over a lot of this information. And the doctor has basically taken off the gloves today. And she's had it. She has absolutely had it with these non-educated individuals with, maybe a high school education, trying to debunk her and trying to stand in the same arena with her. It's just not going to happen. Now, the only individual in their crew that does have an education is Mr. Lee Wilbarger. I hope Wilbarger or Wilbarger. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. We'll just call him Lee from this point on. But we have information on his background. And we have information on Daza, the cameraman. We have information on Mari and Jake. But, you know, none of these people have the education or the background that the doctor does. So therefore, how do they think they have the right to ask for a debate with her when all they do is threaten and insult her? You can insult me all you want. It doesn't bother me. I will debate you at any point in time, any place, anywhere. But the fact of the matter is, folks, these people just basically lie. They try to use big fancy words and other uncredible information to make all of you believe that there's nothing wrong in our solar system. There's nothing wrong with our planet. And the fact of the matter is, you know, the Earth is under an assault every minute of the day. And this has been going on for quite some time. We've been documenting it. We have every right to document this. But when these individuals make these ridiculous videos, what they call their debunking videos, and they put the word debunking or debunked in their video, they're not debunking anything. They're basically, as Astronomy Live says, it's nothing but a bunch of word salad. And why do you think we haven't heard from that individual? Because in about 30 days from now, the doctor is going to be making her way to the state of Florida, to the city of Tampa. She's going to be meeting with an attorney, and she will be filing the libel suit against Mr. Ferguson for the email information that he sent to the chancellor of the university, therefore leading to the complete demise of her 17-year career at the university. So, without further ado, good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Scott.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm doing pretty good. So, you know, over the course of the last couple of days, you know, I know that you've seen and heard some things that these individuals are saying about you and saying about your research. And, you know, a lot of it's pretty bad. I would say 99.9% of it is very bad.
Yes.
Very inaccurate. But what do you think about these threats that they are delivering, such as the threats from Mari and the threats from Jake?
Well, Scott, I mean, I have dealt with physicists who disagree with each other, may even disagree with me. And the way real physicists, professional people act is they ask questions. They listen to the talk. They try to understand each other's work. They listen to the questions. They don't have to agree, and they keep on going. So the fact that these people are acting in such a vulgar manner that they resort to personal insults is unbelievable to me. It just shows me that they are uneducated. They are far from being in the physics arena that I am in. They are not physicists. And it's unbelievable. I'm not going to sink down to their level. They're just uneducated and vulgar. To me, it's unbelievable that human beings can act in this manner and speak in this manner. Now, my own theories, I've built them up from evidence. Everything I have written is built on evidence. As you see, all my articles have pictures, have SETI images in them. They are built on logic. They are built on evidence. And I've been gathering this evidence now for about a year, and I've built up my own theories. In the beginning, I had the same training as any other physicists. I went through a stellar evolution course in my 4th year of university. I knew what a brown dwarf was, what a brown dwarf star was. When I started all this, I recognized them because I had the education. And then I built my theories around the evidence and what I was seeing regarding these objects. And I cannot believe that anybody would be so afraid of a physicist's theories that they would act in this manner. Why? What is there? There is no reason. No other physicist would act in this manner. To me, it's totally unbelievable. It's unbelievable that people can actually act in this vulgar manner. And well, I've studied astrophysics. I've been interested in it for a very long time. And as you know, I started this because I saw strange things in the sky. I then went and looked and saw that other people were seeing strange things. I started looking at SETI images. And what I have come up with is well documented. It's written in a logical manner. And I believe that, was it Jake? He questioned me about what I saw in the sky, and I noticed that he could not even follow a logical argument. And this is the kind of student that I really don't even want in my class, if they cannot even follow a logical argument. Because in physics, what I teach my students is how to think logically, how to think like a physicist, how to eventually be able to build up your own theories or judge theories. And if a person cannot follow a logical argument, they're not good enough to even be in my class.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about education. And once again, for everyone that's new to my channel, let's talk about your education briefly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And let's go from the very beginning. We know that you graduated from high school.
Yes.
And let's start from your qualifications.
Okay, so I did, after high school, I did a bachelor's in physics. I majored in physics and applied mathematics. I then did what's called an honors degree in physics, and I added to that some mathematical physics course from the astronomy side, because I could do that, and I did Lie groups and things like that. And then I did a master's in theoretical physics, and I followed that with a PhD in theoretical physics. I showed my thesis the other day. It was particle physics. It was extremely mathematical. And I enjoyed it because I enjoy mathematics. I enjoyed it. It took me, some of the calculations would take me 2 weeks to just, it was calculating Feynman diagrams basically. And it would take me 2 weeks to do one calculation. And then because no one else had done that calculation, you have to start again to check that you get the same answer again. So that was my PhD basically. In the meantime, I've always been interested in astrophysics. And from the time I was in first year, I was reading about cosmology, astronomy, astrophysics. I would take the books out of the library. So I basically was always interested. I actually wanted to be an astronomer, but the university I went to did not offer it at the time. They had some built-in courses into the main courses that they were doing. But so I tried to read up on it. And then later on, when I started teaching, I then did a master's in science education. And because I was interested in teaching, I enjoyed teaching, I enjoy training physicists. And I don't train my students the same way most other physicists train them. I train them to think for themselves. I don't just teach them the theories that we have, that from Newton and so on up to Feynman. I don't just teach them those theories as if they are facts. I teach them to question, to think for themselves, to come up with their own logical arguments. And I give them a questionnaire and a lecture on what I call the light bulb effect, which is when you are trying to solve a problem, you come up with, sometimes you need to come up with something new you never thought of before. You need to make a new connection. So I teach my students to make these connections. And that is the way all physicists have to do physics because we are at the edge of knowledge. And we take what we know and we stand there and we're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to make connections. We're trying to come up with explanations. And we have to come up with creative ideas on how to connect these. So this is how I train my students to think and to make these connections. And I'm very glad to be working with you, Scott, because I can see that you are very good at making these connections. You are very intelligent. So I'm really happy to be working with you and getting your help.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. How do you feel the other day whenever we allowed Jake into the live stream? Then he got very upset after you slapped him around pretty good. And he referred to you as nothing more than a teacher's aide. Well, how do you feel about something, a comment from a degenerate as he is, basically,
Yes.
you know, an uneducated individual? I mean, how do you feel about somebody saying something like that to you?
Well, I think that somebody who cannot follow a logical argument and argue in a professional way, that they would resort to those kind of vulgar, insulting comments. I think it is beneath me to do a thing like that. I think any other physicist that I've known would never resort to that kind of language usage. I mean, I have been in many conferences. I have attended many astrophysics and astronomy talks by real astronomers and astrophysicists. I have seen how they act with each other when they do not agree. They basically listen politely, and at the end of the talk, they have questions, they ask the questions. Then the audience judges whether the answer to the question is good enough, or if it answers the question fully, or if perhaps that person still has something to work out in their theories. But it never comes down to personal insults. That is completely unprofessional. It's unbelievable to me that people would actually act in this manner. I am flabbergasted, to tell you the truth.
Well, let's talk about this other YouTube debunker, because basically this individual that goes by the name Daza, the cameraman down there in New Zealand, and he kind of talks a big game. He's been trying for years, probably through the government in New Zealand, to discredit and debunk Planet X, Nibiru. And basically I've caught this guy in so many lies, and all he does is just runs his mouth with his stupid little Kiwi accent. And well, basically he's a complete fraud, and people think they respect him because, you know, he casts this false personality with his somewhat educated lingo, the way that he talks. But then the minute that he sees that your guard is down, he attacks you like a vicious Luciferian. And this is the same thing that Astronomy Live did to you whenever you debunked the SDO eclipse. And you were actually invited to this conference, this physicist conference in South Africa, and you submitted an abstract paper.
That's right.
On this SDO eclipse and how it's not possible, and that's not what we're seeing. And it was reviewed, and you were invited to this conference to speak publicly. Okay. And then you also submitted another abstract pertaining to brown dwarf stars in the solar system, and you were also asked to speak on that paper. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct, Scott. I was asked to speak because, don't forget, physicists are interested in learning new things. They may sometimes not agree, but it's okay. It's okay to have new theories. Sometimes these cannot be published because there is, the gatekeepers that stop certain things from being published. And
Exactly.
this, but conferences are usually more open. But what happened with Astronomy Live was that I believe that NASA doesn't want anybody to question the SDO eclipse season. It has to be an eclipse to them, because if it's not an eclipse, everything changes. And basically, I have shown very clearly that it cannot be due to an eclipse, that the sun is actually going dark. And the moment the sun is going dark, it changes everything about the theory about what powers the sun. And from there, everything starts unraveling. And this is why I started, when I observed that the sun was going dark, I had to come up with new explanations about what stars really are. The sun is a main sequence, G25 class star, how it's powered. And it goes into other stars as well. And I had to come up with new ideas, and that's what I have done. And I believe I am qualified, because I am a physicist, to come up with new ideas and new explanations, and to explain them to people, because I'm also a teacher, and I like to explain things in a simple manner so that students, people who are interested, can understand what I am saying. I mean, even Feynman said that basically you have to, if you cannot explain things in plain language, then you do not understand it. So I believe that. I believe in being able to take my own theories and explain them in a clear manner. This is what I believe my mission is, and that is to tell people around the world the truth about what's going on in the solar system. And people like Astronomy Live are trying to stop the truth from coming out, and they will do anything to do it. They threaten me, they call me names. All that does is prove that the truth is on my side, and they are afraid of it.
Now let's go back to this fool down there in New Zealand, Dazza the cameraman. Okay, he claims to be an amateur astronomer, and he hangs out at this, oh, I forget it. I think it's called the Taranga Observatory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just because someone labels themselves as an amateur astronomer and a YouTube debunker, do you think it gives this individual the right to debate you based on his education? Because I mean, as far as we know, he has no education, maybe other than a high school degree. He claims that he is on disability because he suffers from what is that? He says some type of fatigue.
Oh, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah, chronic fatigue syndrome, but yet he has enough energy to pound the keys on his keyboard and make these ridiculous videos. So based on his background, do you think he even has the right, the educational right, the professional right to debate you or debunk anything you say? Now, in their video that they did last night, a live stream with Lee, Jake, and David, David the cameraman, they basically said that everything you say is a complete lie. All of the information that you talk about with brown dwarfs is completely false. And you pretty much, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, what do you think? Do you think individuals like this, do you think they have the right to debate you?
Well, first of all, Scott, real physicists do not talk like that. They do not try to debate each other. They sit down together over a cup of coffee and they discuss their own theories. They may ask each other hard questions after a talk. That's how far they go. So the fact that this person is actually trying to debate me tells me that they're not professional. They're not actually interested in even finding out what my theories are saying. My theories are built on solid evidence. And these people are not interested in solid evidence. They are interested in shutting me up because they don't want the whole world to find out the truth about what's going on in the solar system. I am the only physicist, as far as I know, who has come out into the open. I never intended to. I knew it would lead to problems. I wanted to be anonymous from the beginning. I did my work with Steve Olson, with Chris Potter, anonymously. I was forced out into the open because of Astronomy Live. The fact that I am here and I am doing what I am doing now in the open is because of what Astronomy Live did and how they attacked me through and attacked the university where I was working. And it has led me to having to leave my teaching career, my research at the university, and now being here.
Okay, listen. I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know what? Mr. Wilbarger, he's in the live chat right now.
Yes.
And he was bugging me yesterday to allow him to debate you. And that's not my decision.
Yes.
That's your decision. But let's go very quickly. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm trying to convey to all of you is, you know, it's a different story if you have the background and you have the education to step in the arena, as I call it, because, you know, old Mr. Dazza, the cameraman down there in Kiwi land, he opened up a new YouTube channel and he called it The Arena because he wants the fight. He wants people to get in there and make complete fools of themselves. So that's why I'm using the terminology. So if two physicists or scientists or astrophysicists, if they're going to have a debate, well, then basically, you know, they're going to be pretty much on the same level. Okay. We're not going to have a physicist enter into a debate with a garbage man, because it just doesn't make any sense. So I hope you understand this. I mean, another analogy would be to have a renowned brain surgeon debate surgical techniques with an individual who is a carpenter. Okay, now who's going to pay to watch that? Who is going to take the time to come to that conference and listen to that garbage? So, you know, that is my point, and that is our point with all of this. And, you know, this is going to be a long live stream because we have a lot of information to go over. Now, when I was listening to the live stream last night with the pizza delivery guy and the boat guy and the guy from Kiwi land, okay, because if they want to insult people, I'll insult you right back. I'm very good at it. I don't claim to be Mr. A1 classy. When I have to take the gloves off, I will take the gloves off and we'll go bare knuckle. And that's what we're here for. I'll let the doctor be professional. So let's talk about Mr. Wilbarger. Okay, here's Lee. Nice guy. You know, he's educated. But I don't see anything in his past, his education, that allows him to step into the arena and even discuss these topics with the doctor. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Wilbarger, I mean, he doesn't even have the right to discuss grand solar minimum with people around the world because it's not in his background. He was not trained or educated in any of these subjects. Now, he is educated. I'll at least give him that. You know, between the three musketeers there, he's the only one I think that's, you know, that is educated from James Madison University. But whenever you pull up his professional information, you know, I mean, all the information is right there. I mean, he is an engineer, electrical engineer, electronics engineer. You know, a lot of his background, I mean, you have it right here. Regatta director, America's Solar Boat Cup, captain, project manager, Electric Blue Solar Yacht Project, SME Battlefield Electronics, Department of Defense. I'm really not catching this here, Lee. James Madison University, Army ROTC, Activities and Societies, ROTC. Florida State Fire College, engineer's degree, fire science and firefighting. Woodrow Wilson Rehabilitation Center, engineer's degree, electrical, electronics, and communications engineering. Okay, well, enough bashing Mr. Will Barger. The fact of the matter is this gentleman doesn't even have the qualifications to step in the arena and debate the doctor. So I hope you are all understanding the point that I'm trying to get across. You know, she wouldn't mind debating someone that is qualified to speak as she does, with an education, with a certifiable background, and not as a teacher's aide. And that was a very, very big insult delivered by a man who sells used cars and delivers pizzas at the age of 38. And then you have the kiwi fruitcake down there in New Zealand, who's basically done nothing with his life. He sits in his little apartment getting paid by the New Zealand government because he's probably scamming the system and stating that he suffers from chronic fatigue syndrome and can't work. But yet he can sit on YouTube all day long and make stupid debunking videos. And because he has a cute little Kiwi accent and he speaks in an educated manner and confuses people with smoke and mirrors, people may tend to believe him. Now, Dazza, the fruitcake cameraman, he's been on me since August of 2016. Him and Astronomy Live and the Tweedledee and Tweedledum over there at WTF Sky. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me very carefully. I've been publicizing the information pertaining to Planet X for almost 1 year now on YouTube because I got to the point in my investigations that I felt that I needed to take all of this information to the world population, and I felt that YouTube would be my start. No sooner than I started making some, you know, groundbreaking discoveries and I started to attract a lot of people's attention, these individuals were assigned to me immediately to spread their disinformation and make me look like a fool. But they underestimated me, and they underestimated my education, and they underestimated my tenacity. And I black and blued all of their eyes. And I'm not afraid of them, and they don't bother me. But you don't have the right, you don't have the educational right, Mr. David Gregg, Mr. Jake Riley, Miss Mari, oh God, and Mr. Will Barger. You folks don't have the educational background to stand up to this so-called teacher's aide. So when the day comes where you can slap down on the table multiple master's degrees and a doctorate, and you can put down almost 20 years of lecturing at a university on the subject, then maybe we'll open the door for you just a little bit. But until now, you know, this lady, our physicist, our professor, our doctor, has been doing a fantastic job at bringing this information and bringing the scientific background to everything in layman's terms so we could all understand it. She's not bringing smoke and mirrors like Mr. Dazza, the cameraman, and she's not bringing, you know, insults like Jake, the pizza delivery guy. I mean, listen, folks, if you were going in for brain surgery, okay, would you let a pizza delivery man operate on your brain? Of course not. So the fact of the matter is, the doctor is educated and qualified to speak on these subjects. She has investigated these matters now for quite some time. And I think that she's doing a fantastic job at bringing this information, deciphering this information, theorizing about this information, and putting it to all of us in layman's terms so we can understand it. And again, you know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give all of you the power of knowledge. And listen, they want to dumb you down. They do not want you to have this knowledge because, as I have said countless times before, knowledge is power. They don't want you to have the knowledge. So therefore, they will try and knock you down. I don't consider an individual who states that they are an amateur astronomer, I don't consider them to be credible. I'm sorry, I don't. Now, the lady that's speaking with you here today, who holds several master's degrees and a doctorate, and her work experience and her background, well, I'd have to say she's pretty credible, and she definitely knows what she's talking about. So until Daza, the Kiwi cameraman, produces some master's degrees, or even, even something that states that he's qualified to speak, he needs to shut up and just go away. And don't threaten this lady. You know, I got numerous emails from this Jake Riley with all of his threats about what he's going to do to the physicist. He's going to contact the Department of Immigration and Naturalization and have her deported under some kind of a terrorist thing. Give me a break. Are you crazy? You know, he's telling people to call the cable company to have my cable shut off. Yeah, fat chance on that there, Jake.
Yeah.
Keep on with the good work there, buddy. But, you know, anyways, I asked Mr. Will Barger yesterday in the live chat. I asked him if, you know, he wanted people to accept his theories on grand solar minimum. Then why does he have a pizza delivery guy promoting his theories on YouTube? Ladies and gentlemen, does that make any sense? Lee's an educated man. He has a pretty good background as far as employment. Why would he pick a used car salesman to promote grand solar minimum and the possibilities of an ice age? Does that make any sense to any of you? That is the most ridiculous damn thing that I've ever heard. So Lee, you need to rethink your partners, buddy, because they're not doing you any good. They're actually giving you a black eye and a bad name. I'm sure you heard Jake's rant on YouTube on a live stream yesterday with every mother effing this, mother effing that, you know, the threatening to me, the threatening to the doctor. I mean, this went on for an hour. Mm-hmm. And then you got his cohort back there, Miss Chubby, and, you know, she's going on and on calling the doctor the C word, you know, C-U-N-T. You know, she's going to bust her up. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. And you want these people, I mean, you think these people are credible? They're thugs. They're thugs. They're being financed by God knows who. That's just the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact of the matter is, the lady that is on this live stream right now is an educated physicist, a doctor. Mm-hmm. She knows what she's talking about. And she has, there's no game here, ladies and gentlemen. She has nothing to gain by coming on here and discussing these matters with you. Nobody's paying her. Astronomy Live took care of her paycheck. He took care of it by creating a very nasty, hostile situation for her at the university, where she gave almost half of her life, 17 years. She wanted to teach and lecture for 10 more years. Mr. Ferguson took care of that. He took care of that. And we know that Dazza, the cameraman, was behind that with Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Riley and Miss Mari thing over there. We know they all teamed up together because this is what they do. They don't bring any scientific information to the table. It's all smoke and mirrors. And Dave, hey, buddy, anytime you're willing to step up to the plate, you better bring a master's degree. You better bring some type of education with you if you want to step into the arena with this doctor, because we don't have time for your nonsense. So you can control your little troll groups for making the hideous videos about the doctor. We actually watched one last night and this morning, and we thought it was just absolutely comical that these people think that these little parody videos are going to debunk what is happening to our planet. I mean, honestly, when all hell breaks loose, you know, you people should be the first ones led to the guillotine, because what you're doing to humanity is wrong. Very wrong. And one day you'll stand in front of your creator. And I hope your creator casts you into the depths of hell where each and every one of you belong. So you can go on continuing with what you're doing, but when the day comes, when that day of reckoning comes, you'll face the music. That much is true. Now, Doctor,
yes,
you've heard of this. You've heard of this Dazza, the cameraman, YouTube, Planet X debunker. What do you think of this? What do you think of this fool?
Well, Scott, it's unbelievable that people cannot look at the evidence that there is, because there is so much. The SETI images, the photographs people are taken from around the world, the color of the sky. People who ignore the evidence completely, that will not at all even consider it, are not worth debating, because they don't want to debate. They want me to stop saying what I have been saying. And what I have been saying is that these objects are here, that things are changing on the Earth, and everything in the solar system has changed. And the most astounding thing is that observing these objects changes our current knowledge of the laws of the universe. And to me, this is the most fascinating thing. I'm not just doing this to do it. It's not just a research project. I am fascinated by what is actually happening, and about, I've always wanted to understand the laws of the universe. This is why I became a physicist. And the fact that these objects are now telling us so much about what the laws really are is fascinating to me. And I enjoy teaching people about this and letting them know about what is going on. This is what I'm all about. I'm not interested in debating people. If people want to have different theories, if they want to ignore the evidence, that's up to them. But why do they need to try and stop me from having my own theories? I am a physicist. I'm trained to do what I am doing. Now, as regards this grand solar minimum, don't forget that any theory out there can be destroyed by one observation that tells you that it's wrong. And the whole thing about the grand solar minimum is that if the sun was getting weaker, And that was leading to say, because we know that the earthquakes have been exponentially increasing since the 1970s, then you would have to explain why the earthquakes are increasing. But at the same time, if the sun was getting weaker during that time, then what you would get is more cosmic rays. But yet, there is at least one study showing that there is no connection between cosmic ray flux and earthquake activity, and that's all you need to falsify that theory. It is more, but you only need one. And I've written about this now. It's I think we did a live stream on this. I've written an article. It's in my article. People can go and listen to that. You only need one case. The theory is falsified.
Now, I wanted to get into the brown dwarf research.
Mm-hmm.
These three individuals during their live stream yesterday, they looked completely disorganized. They really didn't sound like they knew what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know they didn't know what they were talking about because Lee had made a statement that, brown dwarfs should actually be called purple dwarfs.
Mm-hmm.
And going into the history of the name brown
Mm-hmm.
dwarf, and it was given to these stellar objects by a female astronomer,
Mm-hmm.
and the name black dwarf was already being used.
Yes.
So she labeled them brown dwarfs, when in fact they're not brown in color at all.
Mm.
And, over the years of research, astronomers have now started to classify these objects. More and more research over the past 10 years have brought out a lot more information.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started going into the sun.
Yes.
And they were putting words in your mouth by stating that you were saying that this brown dwarf is our binary twin. And I've never heard you make that statement.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, when I talk about the sun, I know the sun is a main sequence star. It's a coolish star, 5,800 Kelvin surface temperature. It emits white light. Brown dwarfs emit mainly infrared radiation because they are cool. Most of them are below 1,000 Kelvin. So they emit very little visible radiation. I mean, I know very well what the star classifications are. But when I started seeing what was happening with the sun, I started seeing that there's something more going on than the current knowledge tells you. And so I came up with my own theories. I mean, I still use the research on white dwarfs is extensive. I have looked into it. I have used it. And what I classify as a brown dwarf star is basically a white dwarf. A white dwarf is a concentrated star. It has collapsed because after the red giant phase, the main sequence star runs out of energy and fuel, turns into a red giant, and then when it runs out of fuel completely, it collapses into a white dwarf. A white dwarf has, and it also releases a lot of its gaseous outer layers. That's why white dwarfs have an envelope, a gaseous envelope, and they have an outer layer of gas surrounding them. And the brown dwarf stars I observed in the solar system are exactly the same. The only difference is they don't emit as much light as white dwarfs. They emit very little visible light. It's mainly infrared. And that's the difference. That's why I call them brown dwarf stars and why I differentiate brown dwarf stars from brown dwarfs. Brown dwarfs are even more cooled down brown dwarf stars. And they get to the point where they look like these substellar objects. They look almost like planets. But I believe they actually have a solid core. And that is the difference. And then they have a sort of an atmosphere around it with silicates and methane and so on. Some of them may have water. They are different colors. They have different temperatures, and their light emission has to do with the temperatures. So, I mean, I use what there is. I use the evidence to come up with my own theories to explain what I see in the solar system. I don't know what else I can say, Scott.
Well, let's go into some other subject matter here, because we're going to pick apart what they said, because this is what they try to do to you.
Okay.
So, yesterday, Jake was saying that, oh, if there was a brown dwarf star out near Saturn, it would be illuminating the Earth like a second sun.
Yes. Well, don't forget, these objects emit very little visible light. We have signs that the atmosphere is being illuminated by other objects because we see the red light in the atmosphere at sunset and sunrise. But the sun still emits a lot more light than these stars can emit, which is why during daylight we have basically sun. And then when it starts setting, then we're starting to see the illumination from these other objects, which are much dimmer. So an object by Saturn or just behind Mars orbit, and this is an object possibly coming in. It may be producing a little bit of light, but it's also very far away, still behind Mars, Mars orbit. So I doubt that it will illuminate the atmosphere very much. It may cause, as you know, the nighttime nowadays is often not as dark as it used to be, say, 30 years ago. So in that, we have a little bit of evidence that there are objects out there emitting enough light to make our nighttime not as dark as it used to be. So but what can we expect? We cannot expect to have sunlight during the day as during the night as during the day. These objects are not able to emit the same kind of radiation that our sun does, basically mainly in the visible light spectrum. They are not able to. They are completely dark when they come into the solar system. They emit no light whatsoever, no visible light. They only emit infrared light. They're only visible. That's why the IRIS telescope was launched in the 1980s, because they wanted to observe these objects that only emitted infrared light, and this was an infrared telescope. Otherwise, if they emitted visible light, what was there the reason for launching IRIS? There was no reason. So this has been going on for many years, for 30, 40 years. There's actually evidence that the sun's magnetic field started changing 100 years ago. So, and that would have been the effect due to these stars starting to come into the solar system. Don't forget, the solar system is 100 AU in extent. It is huge. And yet the sun can possibly, I think it can, sense these stars coming in at the edge of the solar system because they have very high magnetic fields. They retain them from the white dwarf stage.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you obviously and profoundly definitely sound like you know what you're talking about, because you've spent many, many years in educating yourself. And I mean, I would have to say that, you're at the top of your class. And in actuality, throughout all of your studies, you literally have been at the top of your class in your education. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Scott. I'm not the kind of person who likes to speak much.
I know. I know I had to drag this out of you because you're very modest.
Yes, I got my degrees with distinction. I earned gold medals for being top student. Yes, I've got many certificates for outstanding achievement in several courses. Yes, I've got it.
Okay,
Okay,
that's exactly what I wanted to know.
thank
Now,
you.
let's move into this information that's up on the screen right now. And this is coming from a renowned school, Caltech. Now, this is the same Caltech where, Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but, Mike Brown is the killer of Pluto.
Yes.
These two astronomers are the ones who came up with the claim of Planet 9. They did it on a chalkboard with mathematics. They don't have any observational proof. Basically, a big disinformational story.
Yes.
However, scientists, astrophysicists, physicists, and astronomers around the world from all different walks of life, from all different types of universities and colleges, have been researching brown dwarfs for quite some time, and they're still learning about them. Am I correct in saying this?
Absolutely, Scott.
Okay. Now, with the article that is up on the screen right now, failed stars host powerful auroral displays.
Yes.
Now, we talked about this morning in complete detail. And these scientists, and I'm just going to refer to the whole batch I'm going to group them together. Astrophysicists, astronomers, physicists, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to just group them together and use the word scientists.
Yes.
They're starting to make discoveries, and they're starting to move away from referring to these brown dwarf stars, but they're more closely related to a planetary object. That's where they're moving towards. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Scott. But don't forget that the brown dwarf we discovered close to the sun looks a lot like a rocky planet because it's got a solid surface. So I'm not surprised that they are moving in that direction.
Now, they referred to the photographs that I captured as a blue lens flare.
Yes. Well, that's unbelievable that they would call that a lens flare. Don't forget that the first article I wrote was on lens flares. A lens flare is a secondary image of a real object. So the fact that you have a so-called lens flare that looks like that tells you immediately that there must be an object exactly like that.
No.
And it's definitely not the sun because the sun's not blue.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have a surface with what look to be, like structures of, geological structures and things of that nature. I mean, I think that's just their way of spreading their disinformation. But this article that was published from Caltech, this is talking about auroras. Auroras that have been captured on brown dwarf stars.
Yes, this is quite interesting, actually. Don't forget, an aurora can only happen on an object when it interacts with another object that has a particle flux, because it takes particles coming into the object that has the aurora. That's why we have aurora on Earth. We have a magnetosphere. The Earth produces a magnetic field, and we do expect these objects, brown dwarfs, to have magnetic fields. But only two possible things can lead to these aurorae. And that is either there is another star nearby with a stellar wind, and that stellar wind is impacting the magnetosphere of this brown dwarf and causing magnetic reconnections, and then the particles, electrons, to go into the aurora ovals for the brown dwarf. So that's exactly the same thing as happens on Earth. The other possibility is that these objects are what I say they are, and they are moved down through the levels from main sequence, red giant, white dwarf, brown dwarf star, and brown dwarf. In other words, an old star. And these old stars are still able to ionize their gaseous atmosphere. And that type of aurora could be due to ionization of the object itself, of its gaseous envelope. So these are the two possibilities. I mean, I enjoy these articles that are about observations. I don't always agree with other astrophysicist theories about stellar evolution, because I've had to change mine based on what I've seen happening in the solar system. But I enjoy the observation that these objects have aurora. That is very interesting indeed.
And you don't go and slander
No, of course not.
other scientists. I mean, you have your own theories. They have their own theories. Everything's
Yes.
based on observations and research. Now, what I wanted to go over with you very quickly, and we're going to be talking about this gentleman, Mr. Greg Hellman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read just briefly, if you guys want to follow my cursor here real quick. I'm going to be looking at this information right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Caltech.
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, if you trolls want to slander Caltech, go right ahead. But it says, by observing a brown dwarf 20 light years away using both radio and optical telescopes, a team led by Greg Hellman, assistant professor of astronomy at Caltech, has found another feature, that makes these so-called failed stars more like supersized planets. They host powerful auroras near their magnetic poles. The findings appear in the June 30th issue of the journal Nature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was posted on July 29th, 2015, almost 2 years ago. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that you are not the only physicist,
Mm-hmm.
or let's just say scientist, to group everybody together. You're not the only one on the face of this planet that is making very critical observations and doing the research into these stellar objects.
That's right.
Okay, there are other professionals. Now, here's another point. If everything that you were saying, and you've been investigating very hardly now for almost a year,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was at least one astronomer, one astrophysicist, one other physicist that has heard your presentations and your information coming out on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But the only individuals on the face of this freaking planet that are coming out and saying that you're a liar is Jake Riley, Astronomy Live, Mr. Ferguson, and Mr. Dazza, the dipshit cameraman. Now, out of all of these people on the face of this planet, these are the only people that are saying you're full of crap. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yes, Scott, it's unbelievable that these people act in this vulgar manner, because I know how physicists are. They will listen to what I have to say. They will make up their minds whether they believe it or not. But they will not sink to the level of actually coming and trying to debunk me. They can follow a logical argument. They can see that I have a certain method of doing things and building up my logical arguments. They may even disagree with me on certain points, because don't forget, I had to build up these theories. When I started, I couldn't actually I couldn't believe what I believe now at the beginning. I had to build it up. I was trained in physics, in believing about that everything was about gravitation. And I had to slowly let go of those theories I had ingrained. So any physicist that will listen to me will consider it. And and think about it, but they will not sink to the level of actually coming out and insulting me, because I have different ideas that I've built up over time. It's just unbelievable to me that there are people like that. It's completely unprofessional, Scott.
Well, I would have to agree. Now, let me ask you another question. Everybody has a right to their own opinion, correct?
That's, of course.
Okay, but when you are attacking another individual based on their research, and you just covered this.
Yes.
How often do you see other scientists and physicists publicly and horribly attacking each other based on their science? Now,
absolutely never, Scott. It never happens. Never.
Let's move to Albert Einstein. He was criticized.
Yes.
He was criticized openly, but he would not debate people that were not at his level.
Yes.
And I've read this about Albert Einstein. You can criticize him all you want for not entering into some of these debates based on his theories. However, here we are in 2017, and we're still talking about Albert Einstein, but yet he didn't waste his time on these cold-hearted, non-educated individuals, because it is a waste of his time.
Yes.
And I believe the same applies to you. You don't have time to waste, but that is what they want you to do. They want you to waste this valuable time trying to debate their nonsense. Would that be what I just said? Would that be okay to say?
Yes. The way physicists do, if they want to, if they realize that another physicist has written something and they don't agree with it, what they usually do, if they are really serious about it, most of the time they're not, but if it's in their own field and they've been working on that as well, they would write a little paper or a letter, and that letter will get published. And then the other physicist would respond with another article. So it would all be written down for the whole community to see in that manner. And it's done in a very respectful manner. So because I work on YouTube, I write my articles. Then if people want to rebut my articles, I suppose they should do the same. They should write up their articles with their arguments and their evidence, publish it, and then I would respond to it. This is the way I have responded to the grand solar minimum theory. I have written articles on it, and we've had live streams on it. I believe this is a decent way of discussing theories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and never have we said that the sun does not go through these cycles.
Of course.
Okay, because we know the sun goes through these cycles. That much has been scientifically proven.
That's right.
The fact of the matter is, we do not agree with Lee and his cohort, Jake Riley. We don't agree with them that we are facing an ice age or a mini ice age based on their facts. Because the fact of the matter is, anything can cause an ice age. An asteroid blast can cause an ice age.
That's right.
Massive volcanic eruptions simultaneously blocking out the sun for a period of months can cause a mini ice age, upsetting the ecosystems on this entire planet. So all we're saying is we're not buying their baloney. And once again, I'm going to have to reiterate this. Lee, listen to me. Why would you pick a used car salesman and a pizza delivery guy to sell your grand solar minimum product? Are you insane? I mean, you seem like an educated man, Lee. Why would you pick a pizza delivery guy to sell your theories on YouTube? That to me is just not credible. And I think that you need to rethink your relationship with Mr. Riley and his cohort donut eater, Mari, and Daza, because Daza put you down. Daza kicked you in the balls behind your back. But yet, in the live stream yesterday, you were, you were kissing his rear end left and right. Because what? You think Daza is smarter than you? He's not. He's a shill. He's a shill. There's nobody else on YouTube or anybody else out there in this world right now that is saying that what the doctor is researching and the papers that she's writing and the research that she's doing is wrong. There is only a small handful of you shills that are out there spreading disinformation to the world population. Somebody should bend you over their knee and give you a spanking. You are not even human to do something like that and defraud the entire world population with your nonsense. Do you hear me? This planet belongs to the people. We live on this planet. We all want to survive, and we all have the right to know the truth, and we all have the right to do our own research. And everybody on this planet has the right to listen. You better get it through your thick skull, Lee, that the people that you're messing around with, if you're not really one of them, they're going to ruin you. And your credibility factor is slipping into that pizza box. Wake up, man. Wake up. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is there have been groundbreaking discoveries in the brown dwarf neighborhood for quite some time. The other fact of the matter is, if something was occurring in our solar system that was detrimental to the world population, they're not going to tell us. The fact of the matter is, ex-President Barack Obama signed an executive order opening up a space weather office in Washington, D.C., which we've heard nothing from. Nothing. No statements, no press conferences, nothing. So what was the sense of opening up that space weather office? We hear nothing from the government, and you never will. You all know that. We all know about the whole depopulation issue. We all know about the New World Order. We all know about the elite, the Bilderberger group. We're not blind. We're not stupid. The fact of the matter is, we have enough information, but we're going to keep on plugging away. So my advice to you debunkers, mind your P's and Q's. Come up with some hardcore evidence. And when the day comes around, when you can produce some, diplomas, certificates, some education, some background to step into the arena and debunk this lady, maybe some people will start to listen to you. But the only people that really do listen to you are the small-minded individuals that you're sucking in on a daily basis. And they'll soon find out that you're a complete fraud and that you are doing detrimental things to them by making them believe that there is nothing wrong. And that's a travesty. That's awful. That's just disgusting. And the fact of the matter is, again, scientists, I'm going to use that word just in a group, they're making discoveries. But if you listen to some of their conferences, which I have, Harvard University, they flat out said, as long as we continue to get the funding, we can continue with the research. So the fact of the matter is, if they start stating controversial things that go against the government, they're not going to get the funding. It's cut and dry, people. It's all about money. They say the reason why I'm on YouTube is about money. Okay, yeah. That 13 cents that I earned on a video yesterday, okay, you can have it. This ain't about money. This is about the power of knowledge and bringing the information to the entire world population. One of the main reasons why the doctor came to the United States was so she could sit in peace and write the first book of a series that hopefully people will be able to read immediately when it is published on Amazon. She is also going to be holding her own conferences and seminars across the United States, hopefully as soon as possible, but it does take some coordination. You know, she's only been here for a few days. She's been suffering from jet lag from the long trip, trying to adjust to her new surroundings. But you know what? How powerful she is with lack of sleep, suffering from jet lag, and in a new place for the first time in her life, sat down and finished the first chapter of her book. Are any of these guys out there trying to write a book? No, they're just troublemakers. So, ladies and gentlemen, stick by us. Stick by us. Don't fall prey to these heathens, because that is exactly what they are. They called the doctor a charlatan in one of their stupid little troll videos. A charlatan? A fake? I don't think she's fake. They said that she wasn't here in the United States. Jake Riley bet me $50,000 of his non-existent money that the doctor was not here with me in the United States. We proved that the other day. I sat right next to her in the live stream and said hello. Jake, you owe me $50,000. I know I'll never see it. But the fact of the matter is, hey, you know, we're debunking the debunkers. And this will be the last time we address this. Now, doctor, this article that I have up on the screen now, NASA discovers coldest brown dwarf neighbor of the sun. Yesterday, they were talking about this blue brown dwarf.
Yes.
And they were making fun of the terminology. Blue brown dwarf. Well, it just so happens that the color of the brown dwarf was blue. We can't help it that scientists named these stellar objects brown, when
that's right.
In actuality they could be a magnitude of colors. Is that correct?
Yes, of course they can be any color, because they, well, the first ones they discovered were orange and magenta and so on. But as you can see, this is from 2014. This object is drawn blue because it's supposed to have quite a lot of water in its atmosphere. And that should give it a blue color. And these brown dwarfs can have different compositions. It's not cut and dry that they have to be orange, brown, or magenta in color. They can be any color. And the fact that they have a blue one goes with the fact that we discovered the blue one close to the sun.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. You know, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on because we have so much to cover. And you know what I want to do here? Let's go back to this information. I'm going to turn it over to you. And I mean, if you just want to read through some of this, but it goes through the classes of L dwarf, T dwarf, Y dwarfs. And, you know, Mr. Will Barger, you know, he was kind of, I don't know, kind of insinuating that you did not even know about the different classes that scientists have placed these brown dwarfs in. Now, before I go any further, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a very close look. Follow my cursor right here.
Yes.
Okay, this information that the doctor is going to read with you and explain is coming from Philip Lucas, University of Hertfordshire, and Patrick Roach, University of Oxford. Okay? These are not YouTube trolls. These are not just wannabes. These are educated individuals who have written about these objects. They have studied these objects. Okay? So, yes, the doctor does know the difference between the classifications. Go ahead, Doc. Take over.
I'm very familiar with the background on brown dwarfs. Basically, they are called substellar objects. They form much like other stars, except they're not massive enough. Well, that is what the standard theory will tell you. They're not large enough to sustain fusion reactions. They're not hot enough in their centers. And so they start out hot, say between 2000 and 3500 Kelvin. So they will look initially like dim, small stars. And then over time, they will cool down because they're not able to sustain fusion reactions, although some of them can burn deuterium. But eventually they cool down and they go from the L dwarf to the T dwarf to the Y dwarf, and the Y dwarf is from 500 to 600 Kelvin. The L class at 1000 Kelvin, they still emit some visible light, but very little, and I suppose it will be red, which is the lower frequency. And that's what we know about brown dwarfs. They have different compositions. They have clouds. They're a little bit like Jupiter in their the cloud formations that they have. They are usually about the same size as Jupiter. So the radii is about the same as Jupiter. That is, and I'm talking about the current theory, the accepted theory. I have moved on a little bit from there, but this is the current theory. So they are about the same size as Jupiter, but they are a lot denser. They are supposed to be a lot denser. So yet the ones that I found in the solar system are not as dense. I think the density for brown dwarfs is supposed to be 70 grams per centimeter cubed. And the ones that I found in the solar system are a lot less than that. So this is what happens. Most of these brown dwarfs are observed at 20, 30, 50 light years away. The ones in the solar system are right here. They're at 1 AU, 2 AU. They're very easy to study in the solar system. And then we start studying them, we start realizing that they are a little bit different from what accepted theory says they are. But the whole thing is very interesting. I find these substellar objects very interesting indeed. I've been looking at them for quite a while and looking at the observations that have been made. Because I usually differentiate observations from articles that just talk about the theory, about how these objects form. Because my own belief about stellar evolution is a bit different from the accepted theory. But the observations regarding these objects are extremely interesting. So I usually look for articles that talk about the observations. And I take the theory regarding how the object forms with a bit of a pinch of salt, because I know that the objects in the solar system have shown that they are forming in a different way.
Doctor, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I'm going to be just flat out, straight, blunt. And I know you'll tell the truth because you don't lie about anything.
Yes.
What would happen if these university astronomers, astrophysicists, and physicists start going against the grain, against the government, and they started to publicize the real deal? What do you think would happen with their funding?
Yes, well, that's the end of their funding, because first of all, their articles would not be published. They would not be accepted by the journals, because only accepted theory is accepted by journals, basically. So once the articles are not published in peer-reviewed journals, then that dries up the funding. And that can end a researcher's career, basically, because it's dependent on getting funding so you can do more research, so you can publish more articles, so you can do more research. You see what I mean?
Yes, that's what we call professional suicide.
That's right, yes.
And that's basically almost what happened to you, but that was at the hands of someone else.
Yes, that's basically what happened to me. Basically, I could not go on working at the university because, and it was not my colleagues. To tell you the truth, I have very supportive colleagues who would like to see me carry on with my research. And, but the head of school did not support me and did not like that I was doing such a research. So,
what caused all of that? What caused all of the confusion and commotion? What led to all of this?
Okay. Astronomy Live wrote this email to the head of school, basically threatening the school itself. And basically saying, look, you have someone working there who is saying certain things, and basically they were controversial, very controversial. So because it was controversial, I was investigated for, it came out in the end that I had the right to go on writing those articles. But in the meantime, the environment became very victimizing. And it became extremely uncomfortable for me to go on working there. And I had to make a decision in the end, and I decided that I needed to leave.
Let me ask you something. You used the very key word, controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, in your own opinion, that all of science at one point or another has the ability to be controversial? Because it wouldn't be science.
Exactly. The thing is, nowadays, because of the peer review system, most physicists and astronomers and astrophysicists toe the line. In other words, if NASA says it's an eclipse, you better not question it.
Exactly. And when you do question it,
yes,
what happens?
When you question it, you are attacked. You are forced to leave your research. You are investigated like I was. Sometimes you can even be fired. And I wasn't fired exactly, but in a way I was shown the door.
Well, that's okay, because you know what? They showed you the door, but yet other doors have opened for you. Mm-hmm. And you have a tremendous amount of people that are supporting you and your research and your investigations now.
Yes.
And in a very short amount of time, you're going to show the entire world all of this. Do you think everyone has the right to know what is happening?
Of course. This is my main reason for doing what I'm doing. I think people have the right to know what is happening on their planet, with the sun, in the solar system. They have a right to know what is going on. They have a right to choose to understand or not to understand. And I believe that when people realize what's going on in the solar system, they will look to their spiritual lives for answers. And I believe in God, as you know, Scott, and I believe that God created the universe and all these objects that are here. And there's a message in them, and that is, it's time. This is a time in Earth's history where you have to look to your spiritual life and connect with your creator. And I believe that's the message in all these objects in the solar system. And I believe people have the right to know that these objects are here.
I agree. That is the sole basis of me, my little self, taking my knowledge, my research, my educational background, and I'm no dummy. I've got a pretty high IQ.
Scott, you are extremely intelligent. I've known you for a while now, and I know that about you. And you have been so wonderful and so helpful to me, and I'd like to really thank you.
Well, I mean, I owe you all the thanks. That much is for sure. But I have done my studies and my research, and I am college educated, and
Hmm.
I have a pretty impressive work background. I'm not going to sit here and thump my drum, but you know, whenever I have to take off the gloves, I will take off the gloves, and I will fight to the end. And I think that is one thing that all of the viewers who are now our teammates, I think they know that about me, that I'm not afraid to get down and get dirty, because the fact of the matter is people push you into that situation. Some people will cower away and run and hide. The fact of the matter is, I don't run and hide, and I will face each and every one of these individuals anytime they want. You know, they threaten me all the time. Oh, we're coming to your door. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to shut you down. You need to get the F off of YouTube, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? I'm still here. Our channel is still growing, and we're still making headway. And our sole purpose is to bring the knowledge of what is happening to the world population. Because listen, ladies and gentlemen, I've mentioned this before, and the fact of the matter is, people are dying on a daily basis. These are unfortunate people, but the fact of the matter is, our weather systems are changing drastically from last year into this year. I warned everyone last year that this was going to occur in 2017. I was told that I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was talking about. I should shut my effing mouth and get off of YouTube. But now all of a sudden, there's so much publicity over this that now the government is sneaking information out, and they're talking about climate change. Climate change is not induced by man. The climate change that we are going through right now is being induced by what is going on in our solar system. That is a fact. I'm not afraid to say it. The doctor is not afraid to say it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Okay? We need to stop believing the nonsense that is out there. And you go by your own observations. Something very critical came out yesterday. YouTube channel creator, Mr. MB333. Listen, this man's very smart. He does a lot of observations. I have the utmost respect for him and his YouTube channel and his research. A farmer contacted him, and this farmer uses solar power. Smart farmer. And he sent in some information stating that something is happening, because he's been using these solar panels for quite some time. And now he's noticing the sun is in a different position. All of a sudden, he now has to change the direction of the solar panels for the first time ever. Now, doctor, you watched that video. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that man, that farmer, all of a sudden, for the first time, after using solar panel and solar energy, why all of a sudden would he have to change and reset the direction of the solar panels for the first time?
Well,
what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only reason is that the Earth has tilted in a certain direction, so it doesn't face the sun properly anymore. And as I've talked about the wobble, obviously the temp, and you can see it from the temperatures, and sometimes even the climate in certain areas on Earth changes, because we are not at the same latitude that we have been before. This is also the reason why the ice is melting at the poles. It's because basically the Earth is warming up from the bottom because of the magma heating up because of the interaction with the magnetic fields from these objects. But it's also that the Earth is wobbling because the magnetic poles have shifted because of this magnetic connections with these objects in the solar system. And that is the reason.
Well, that sounds pretty prophetic to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have an article up here
Yes.
Once again, this is from Astronomy Magazine.
Yes.
Very respectable. I review a lot of their information.
Yes.
And this was placed into an article back on August 25th, 2016, just about the time when I started to be attacked, you know, on a regular basis. And the name of this article is "When Does a Small Star Become a Brown Dwarf?"
Yes.
And I mean, this was a pretty informative article. Brown dwarfs, red dwarfs,
Yes.
ultra cool stars.
Yes.
What's the difference? And the reason why I'm bringing this information up is yesterday in the live stream with Mr. Lee Will Barger and Jake and Daza, the whatever he wants to call himself. I don't know why he refers to himself as a cameraman.
Yeah.
But anyways, they started talking about the sun. And, you have your own theories about the sun.
Yes.
After hearing your theories about the sun and cold fusion, woo, boy, oh boy, have you opened up my eyes?
Yes.
Into that theory. Well, I'll tell you what, it's pretty profound.
Yes.
But Lee just mentioned that he said, "Oh, well, the sun, it's just a different kind of a star." But since you know so much, that's your description of our star.
Yes.
It's just a different kind of star. Can
Well,
you give a little bit of your background and your research on this different kind of a star? What is the sun?
The sun is a main sequence star. It's an ordinary, smallish main sequence star. It's coolish as well, with a surface temperature of 5,800 Kelvin. So the classification is G25, which basically tells you the same thing. It's main sequence, which means it's having fusion reactions and fusing hydrogen into helium, and it's not a big star. I mean, the classifications are huge. Above, it's actually called a dwarf star because when you compare it with much hotter stars, they call giants, supergiants, hypergiants. So it's a normal main sequence star. And once it runs out of fuel, it will, like most main sequence stars, it will turn into a red giant. It will become huge. It will engulf Earth's orbit at least. It's expected to when it does that. And then once it's gone through the red giant phase and burnt up some helium into carbon, then it would turn into a white dwarf. This is the kind of star we have. Most stars end up as white dwarfs because they go through the stellar evolution. And so there's nothing wrong. What I'm talking about is accepted theory. Now, what I have discovered is that it's not just about fusion reactions. Because accepted theory tells you that the fusion reactions happen in the center of the star, where the star is extremely hot, millions, 20 million degrees Kelvin, say. And so they believe that it's hot fusion that's happening at the center of stars, and that the light and these explosive energy, this explosive energy coming from these fusion reactions is bubbling up from the center of the star to the surface. And so the surface is heated by what's called convection, which is a transfer of heat through the outer layers. But what I have discovered, and this is where the SDO eclipse comes in, is that the sun is going dark. If the sun is going dark, it is impossible that fusion reactions are happening in its center. And that's not the only piece of evidence. I looked at the fact that sunspots are actually holes in the surface of the sun. And it's dark. They are dark and cooler. So if the sun is dark and cooler inside, it has to be cooler in its center. So we do not, if we had fusion reactions and this heat and energy coming out from the center, these holes would be bright, would be even brighter than the surface. But this is not what's happening. So there are two things that tell me that main sequence stars like the sun do not operate exactly as convention says. And this is when I started looking at the electrical theory. I never went completely into believing everything about the electrical theory. I still believe that stars are powered by fusion, but not powered in the center. They are powered by fusion reactions on the surface and perhaps in the corona. And if you then have fusion reactions, they will produce heat. The heat will go up into the corona and produce what we observe, which is a corona that is much hotter than the surface. So this is one thing that astrophysicists have been battling with for many years. But what leads to the sun having fusion reactions? The only possibility is that it is cold fusion. And cold fusion is different from hot fusion in that it takes electrical energy to power that. So I believe the sun is like a battery. It contains electrical potential energy. And so all stars, when they form with a certain amount of electrical potential energy. And then they power the fusion reactions on their surface. Eventually, the battery runs down, and then they start the aging process. The aging process starts with them turning into red giants, and then white dwarfs, and then brown dwarf stars, and then brown dwarfs. So I have written about all this. I've thought about it, and this is the evidence that has led me to develop these theories.
Very good. Very good. Very interesting.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, I catch myself, you know, drifting into you speaking and, you know, everything now beginning to make a lot more sense.
Yes.
I've been studying a lot of these objects and a lot of these things for many, many years. I've always had a lot of questions, but it's taken this time for someone with your professional background for me to have access to, like I do now, and to take the time to explain these things to all of us in very, very good general terms. And I really appreciate that. I know all of our viewers definitely appreciate that. And, you know, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry that we had to have a pissing match about this subject with these individuals, but, you know, they are trying to abuse and attack the doctor. But see, this is what the governments of the world are doing. You saw it in the US elections just this past year with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. You are still seeing the massive disinformation campaign against our president, whether you want to back him up or not, whatever. I don't like to get into politics. But the fact of the matter is, these world governments, the big ones, okay, they do not want you to have this information. They want to shut it down. Okay, YouTube does it to me. Okay, I should have several million subscribers, but I gain 1,000 subscribers, and the same day I lose 996. This has been going on since March. How's that possible? The fact of the matter is they do not want the information growing that rapidly. Something as serious as this should be getting the attention worldwide. However, a teenage girl sitting in her room showing others how to put on eye makeup gets 10 million views in a day. So you can see where I'm coming from. That's why a few months ago, me and the doctor started formulating a plan, because we are both on the same page. We feel that the world population deserves the right to know what's happening. So therefore, we cannot rely on the internet. We cannot rely on YouTube. We can't rely on Twitter, and we can't rely on Facebook. Social media can be somewhat of a tool, but the fact of the matter is we literally have to get out there and beat the pavement. We have to organize individuals to come and meet the doctor and come and listen publicly what she has to say. And that is what is going to be done. And that is why these factions are so scared right now, because they didn't think that I was telling the truth about her coming to the United States. They didn't think that I was telling the truth about her authoring her first book. They want all of you to believe that all of that is a complete lie. And it's not. The fact of the matter is, the doctor's in the United States. The fact of the matter is, she's completed the first chapter of her book. The fact of the matter is, in a very short amount of time, we're going to be organizing these public speaking engagements. And she's going to be divulging a lot of information for all of you to come and see and listen to and meet her. And that is what they are afraid of. They are shaking in their shoes. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be quite honest with you. If Dazza the cameraman, Astronomy Live, Jake the Fake, and Lee Wheelbarrow, if that's the best that they have to throw at us, we're going to steamroll right over them. I'm just sorry to say. You're going to get hurt, you know, in a hypothetical way, because we're going to steamroll right over you. And the masses of people are going to see directly through your facade, your fakery, and you're going to make a lot of people really, really mad. You may end up in a lynch mob one day. We won't. We're for the people. We are the people. You're not. The fact of the matter is, again, this lady gave up a lot to bring this information to everyone and to help me and to help all of you. And I know each and every one of you that view and follow our channel are respectable. You're becoming like family members, and we're all team members. And a lot of the information that's pouring in on a daily basis, folks, I can't keep up with it, but we appreciate it. And we're going to be working on a few things to get through this information more accurately and quicker. So just bear with us. You know, I'm still backed up on emails and things of that nature. And then woke up this morning and I come to find out that YouTube went ahead and reset all of my channel's settings back to default, eliminating the moderators that I had on my channel to help out with the live streams. This is not the first time or the second time they've done that to me or other folks on YouTube that deal in controversial subjects like this. But once again, we can't rely on YouTube to be supportive. Google is a massively powerful company. It's almost like its own government. And we're up against them each and every day. But I don't think that Dazza the cameraman or Jake Riley or even Lee Wheelbarrow, I don't think these guys have any credibility whatsoever. Now, I want to jump into one other thing, and then we're going to end this live stream, and the doctor is going to enjoy her first Independence Day in the United States.
Yes.
Independence, key word.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. But
Thank you
doctor,
so much.
you know, these jokers went ahead and they showed these simulation programs that have now come out.
Yes.
And you know, Astronomy Live tried to hit me with a computerized simulation that he stated that he programmed and developed to prove the 2007 video footage of the core 2 of the moon, our moon,
Yes.
orbiting the sun. Yeah, it was the moon. And he tried to produce a simulation, a computer simulation that he designed
Yes.
to prove me wrong. Now, these computerized simulations, can you explain to everybody how the information can be skewed and how whatever you put in is what you get out?
Yes, that's right. Basically, you can program any parameters you want into these things and come out with not a real simulation, but basically an animation. That's what I would call it, because the evidence we are looking at, because simulations are supposed to give us more details about certain observations that have already been done. Since we have already observed brown dwarf stars and brown dwarfs in the solar system, the simulations are supposed to give us answers about what parameters need to change in order for us to see what we are actually seeing is happening in the solar system. So basically, if they are using them in the wrong way. As I always say, observation is supposed to lead everything that is done in physics. When we observe a certain object in the solar system, this is what powers, what leads everything that follows. And whatever simulation is done, the parameters must be changed so that it is possible that that object is there. If you don't change the parameters, if you put in the parameters that tell you that that object cannot be there, you're not doing real physics. You're not trying to understand real physics. You're not trying to understand the universe. You try to create an animated universe.
So basically, these so-called animation simulation programs like Sandbox, basically it's like anything. It's like any computer. Whatever information you put in, that's the information that you're going to get out. So would you consider using these types of animations and simulations to be kind of fraudulent if you're trying to deceive someone?
Definitely. I think they are being used fraudulently because they're not interested in the observations. Every astronomer knows that astronomy is about observation, not about simulations. First you observe, then you make a simulation to look deeper into what is causing that observation to be the way it is.
Yes, that's exactly what I tried to tell Mr. Astronomy Live whenever he tried to fool me with his computerized simulation. And I basically threw it right back in his face and said, buddy, you better wake up a little bit earlier in the morning, possibly the next day or the next week, to try to get that kind of BS over on me. Definitely not happening. Now, you know, we were going to go into some of this information that Mr. Lee Wheelbarrow started squawking about, and him and what's the other one, the Kiwi guy, Daza, the dip crap. Yeah, okay. Listen, they were talking about, once again, our sun. And over here to the right side of the screen, this kind of breaks down.
Yes.
You know, these stars, hypergiants, super.
Yes, the hypergiants are blue stars. They're extremely hot. And so this breaks up the different classifications of stars. They are huge, blue, extremely hot stars. And as you come down, they get smaller and and cooler. And then there's the main sequence line, which starts just about below the -5 absolute magnitude, and it goes down like almost like an S all the way down to brown dwarfs. That's the main sequence spectral type. So our sun will be in there. Then there is the white dwarf, which is a separate, and those are D-class stars. They come off the main sequence branch when they become white dwarfs, and they fill up that elliptical shape in there, category 7. And then we get red dwarfs that are a little bit off the main sequence. These are just small stars. They have a temperature of about 4,000 Kelvin. They mainly emit visible light, but only in the red wavelength. And they are quite small. And then there are the brown dwarfs, which, according to accepted theory, are even smaller than the red dwarfs. Or sometimes they start out looking like red dwarfs, but because they cannot sustain fusion reaction, they gradually cool down and eventually only emit infrared radiation. So that is the accepted theory. As you know, I have certain, my beliefs are a little bit different now, but I'm very familiar with the accepted theory.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me that you definitely know what you're talking about beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've listened to everything that you've had to say. I've read every single one of your reports. You've been a big help to me opening up my eyes on a lot of these major subjects. One other thing that I want to touch on very quickly before we end our live stream and go enjoy the day, and all of you folks, you do the same thing. But have you ever stated in any of your reports or any of your commentary that the Earth was going to be completely destroyed and all life completely wiped out? Have you ever made that statement in any?
Not at all. I have never made that statement. I do not believe that. I believe that the Earth will go through a hard time, that the Earth's population will have difficulties because we already having difficulties with the weather, with volcanic eruptions, with earthquakes. We are having problems. Our magnetosphere is being heavily impacted by ionized particles, and that is affecting our lives on Earth. But I do not believe that our planet will be destroyed. I believe life will go on, and that we have a good chance of having a good life still on Earth if we work together, know about what's going on, and work on solving the problems and helping each other.
I mean, there's no doubt, I truly believe that the things are going to be very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that governments around the world are absolutely paranoid as hell because they will lose control.
Mm-hmm.
Losing control of the world population is something that they just do not want to happen. We all know that, ladies and gentlemen. We pay our taxes. They take our money. We get nothing in return. This has always been a huge issue around the world. Man, woman, fighting the governments. Tyranny. In 2017, it's still occurring. It is still occurring. I think the doctor is absolutely 100% correct, banding together, forming that unity, because we will need it. We will need it at one point in time. And she's not the only scientist that is on board with this type of subject matter. She has just decided to stand up and not take a beating. And she wants to deliver the information to everyone or anyone who will listen. She should be commended and respected. And I know all of you that do follow our channel, you do show that respect. You do show that love. I read the emails. I read the comments. You're great people. There's no doubt about that. I really appreciate all of you taking the time each and every day to listen to what we have to say. It's very important. Keep spreading the word. Keep getting the information out there. We're all in this together. That's a fact. And I want to deliver one last message before this live stream is over. And I want you to all understand there are points in time when I could be absolutely 100% professional. And there are other times when I need to take the gloves off and I need to bust people up. And Jake Riley, Dazza the cameraman, Astronomy Live, Lee Wilbarrel, you guys all just got your ass handed to you on this 4th of July holiday, 2017. This little old doctor and her background and her education just kicked you guys right in the nuts again. So I think it's time for you guys to back off, do some other things. Go plant a garden, start prepping, do some more homework. Whenever you come to this ball game again, you better have a PhD in your back pocket because nobody's listening to you. That much is a fact. And the doctor is not going to sit around and continue to take nonsense and abuse from any of these people at any time. Now we're going to go enjoy the rest of the day, probably do a little more research. Once again, everyone in the United States, I want to wish all of you a happy 4th of July, Independence Day, and the doctor. She's going to be experiencing her first Independence Day in this country. For the rest of you that are in other countries, God bless all of you. Stay tuned. Stick with us. Once again, we'll continue getting this information each and every day. This is Scott from Planet X News with the Rogue Physicist. Thank you for watching.